I hope everything's working as I toy with the set and the settings and the audio and everything. I can only hope that it's actually working because I have no way of telling. Once again, thank you for your patience, if patience is what you're giving me. Hey, Sean. The key to these live streams for me lately has been, how do I come up with an idea? How do I create a topic and explore it in a way that's thoughtful, that's something that I'm comfortable sharing, and something that I feel like I can speak about with some experience, not authority, but experience. And the way it's worked since I've started doing this again, like these last 3 or 4 times, I think this is the 3rd or 4th time since the hiatus, the way it's worked is like the Wednesday before, I come up with some idea. I'm reading something, some concept comes to me, and I have no idea. And then I make a thumbnail with whatever that idea is on it, and I make the post and I put it out there. And then a week later, I, at some point between 8 and 8:30, sit down and write it. And I like doing it that way, not because it's last minute, but I like doing it that way because I feel like I get to stew on it for a week and live my life in a way where things can find me that have to do with that topic. And that's been powerful for me. As far as like last week's, I really enjoyed, and it ended up being much more than I thought it would be when I first put the idea out there, because it as the week evolved for me, and it was a heavy week, that idea evolved. And I was talking about work-life balance, and I think had I not had the week leading up to that, work-life balance would have been about some tips and tricks for productivity and separating and clocking out or whatever. And instead it ended up being about a lot more than that. And so here I am talking about professional empathy, which when I wrote that down is important. It is important, and that's why I wrote it down. That's why I wanted to talk about it. But conveniently and excitingly for me, over the past week, what is important to me about what I'm calling professional empathy has evolved, and it has become very, very real, especially today. And so, as I begin, I'm breaking a couple of rules. First of all, I tend to not get too personal on this channel, and I'm going to be a little bit personal. And I'm not going to say a client's name, but I am going to describe them in a way where they could absolutely identify themselves if they were watching. I'm pretty sure they're not. I have nothing bad to say about this client, but it's important to understand where I'm coming from with this concept of professional empathy. So I begin with saying that tonight, for like the last hour and a half, 2 hours, I was screamed at. Just relentlessly, unjustifiably screamed at, just in my face, attacked. And it was made somewhat easier by the fact that it was coming from a 4-year-old. But screaming is screaming. And if you have kids, and if you have a 4-year-old or any year-old, a tantrum is a frustrating thing. And you know that engaging and coming down to that level isn't going to help resolve the tantrum. You need to rise above it and understand they need to release emotion, and then through that you can sort of find your way to the end, and only after it's all over can you go back and find a teachable moment. Those aren't possible in the throes of the tantrum. And what I did tonight was swallow hard and just get screamed at. And it was a rougher day too with my 12-week-old. And she too was a bit colicky and overtired. And this, having her today, as I'm enjoying paternity leave, having her today was a very rewarding challenge. And throughout all this, there were wonderful times with both of my kids today, but there were also just tantrums of screaming in my face. And I only mention that. And again, I don't talk about my kids on this channel. I try not to, other than a passing mention that I have them, and it can be challenging and rewarding. But that experience was just exhausting. And afterwards, I was just left wondering, like, what could I have done better? Where did I go wrong? How could I do better next time? How could we avoid this? And if we can't avoid it, how do we learn from it more next time? And so as this all happened, and a little bit earlier this week as well, I'm left with this concept of what is professional empathy. And I made notes and then I didn't pull them up on time. There we go. So I have to return to the video from 2 weeks ago. It wasn't even a video, a podcast I made 2 weeks ago about sunsetting a client. And I talked about it last week a little bit, where I have a client that I'm not going to have anymore. And it's been a relationship that lasted a few years. It's been lucrative. It has not been without its challenges. It has been visually exciting to be a part of. Every person that I've met having anything to do with this organization has been wonderful. Each individual has been fantastic. However, there's something with their design, and they'd probably tell you the same thing, with their organization, where I don't know who is in charge of me. I don't know who my contact person is, and that makes it very difficult. And as this project came and sort of went, all without really having a conversation with me, I kept asking, like, hey, can we have a phone call? And no one would just respond to me. And I'd email everybody and no one would respond. And then I was just I was like, hey, I'm on paternity leave. I would like to I would like to help you with this, but it may not work like we had talked about it. But the project got so delayed, it then pushed into my paternity leave, which it wasn't supposed to originally. And when it dragged out for so long, I'm in this spot where I want to be accommodating. I want to help them see this project through. I don't just want to say, like, well, snooze, you lose, suckers. That's not who I am. And it came to a head today when, after requesting a phone call over 2 weeks ago and never hearing back of anything, and I was like, I'm on paternity leave, but I will make this happen for you. Shoot me a couple times. I'll pick one that works and get back to you quickly. I said it like that. I wanted to be accommodating, and then just never heard from them. And then today I got an invite to a Zoom call or whatever for me to meet with this other agency that they wanted me to work with for this project. I'm like, it's a time I can't do, but I've been trying to talk to you, been trying to make this work, and it's just clear that you're not listening. And again, this isn't anyone's fault. These emails are going to, again, by design, like 4 people, and I'm sure all of them assume that someone else is picking up and responding, and no one knows that no one knows that no one else has responded. And I'll repeat, these people as individuals are wonderful, and every conversation I've had with them individually has been wonderful, but there's something chaotic about it. So as I've been struggling with this and feeling disrespected, and as I was trying to say, like, why isn't this a good fit? This organization just strikes me as disrespectful. And there's been times where I felt like I'm offering a very reasonable product at a very, very reasonable cost. And the fact that I'm getting pushback, when I'm privy to where some of the budget is being spent for other things, I'm like, and you're going to push back on a creator's day rate? Like, it's frustrating. And so that was eating away at me. And then this lack of response to being super late to awarding this proposal, sort of, to me a month later, and then ignoring anything I said about, hey, this isn't going to work. Can I talk to you? I want to figure this out for you. I can get you in contact. So just didn't hear anything from anybody. And my initial reaction was like, hey, stop it. This isn't worth my time. I'm not paid enough to feel this way. And I felt bad about it. And with today, I was rocking my daughter to sleep. She had finally fallen asleep in my arms. She was refusing to sleep anywhere else. And I got out my phone because it had been an hour and a half of sitting there, and she was asleep. And I'm like, I'll check in on the world. And there was an email with this, like, invite to this Zoom call. And I was so frustrated, and beyond frustrated for the situation and what had evolved, I was frustrated. I'm like, I'm holding my daughter. And yes, I chose to check my email. I get that, but I have some exciting emails coming too. And I was like, I'm frustrated, and I hate that I'm spending any minutes being frustrated. And I get that that's a choice. I opted into that, and I opted to feel that way. I chose to feel that way. And so, but I started going down this path of, like, I'm frustrated with this client, and I need to tell them, like, hey, this isn't going to happen. and I don't like how I've been talked to. And by the way, when I said I'm trying to do this for you on paternity leave, no one even said, oh, hey, congratulations on having a kid. And I'm not fishing for things like that. That's not why I said it. But it was just a thing as I thought back, like, how is there not any recognition? Like what just a cold conversation this is. And when I finally brought myself later to write the email in response, I wrote a very happy email. And I had gotten to the spot where I was happy. And what I had to realize was that I just had a kid screaming in my face. And tonight I had a kid screaming in my face, which informs this perspective after the fact. But I don't have time for these little things. I don't have time for the nonsense when I've been ordering some gear this week and selling some gear, and the phone calls and emails that I've shot back and forth with people have been quick and efficient, and I'm just moving forward with what I need to do. And I forget that all of these people, all of my vendors, are real people with kids that scream at them, with hunger, with headaches, with all the other stuff. Last week when I got my flu and COVID shots, the next day I had an awful headache, and that affected my day, and that affected how I treated other people that day. And I'm sure, hopefully people are getting vaccinated, but I'm sure that there are people who are having side effects from that, the normal expected headaches and soreness. And it's so easy to forget that in your day-to-day interactions. And so I was happy that when I took the time to actually sit down and write the email, I was accommodating. I was like, look, I'm really sorry. This has now gotten to the point where I can't help. I won't be able to help till January when I'm done, but I'm willing to connect you. And I did describe the project to two other producers. One has worked with this client before, one hasn't, but I explained the project, what it would be, and they're both interested in hearing more about it. And I did it as best as I could, and I wrote this email, and I deleted all this stuff that was like, and hey, why didn't you respond to me early? Like, I didn't want it to be like that. But I had to remind myself, like, our jobs are not our lives. And I think it's really easy to assume that when you're in a transaction with somebody, that their entire existence is to serve your transaction. And it's obviously not. And you've been at the grocery store when somebody is just stressed out and they're an absent-minded cashier. And you've been there when they're having great days and they're conversational. It's a lovely experience. And I realized this again recently as I've been seeing some doctors for a couple different things. There's doctors that know all sorts of wonderful doctor things, but just like any other human, these doctors have partners and boyfriends and girlfriends, and they have to figure out what they're gonna have for dinner tonight. And then when they get off work, they gotta stop and get gas, and they know that soccer practice is gonna let out, and this got canceled, and their kid is sick. Like, every individual that you work with in any sort of professional relationship is also an individual outside of that profession, just like you are an individual outside of your profession, just like I am an individual outside of my profession. But so often we forget that, and the way that we deal with people by forgetting that can be cold. It can be unforgiving and rude. And it all got into perspective for me of like, man, I hope that this doctor is focused a little bit. I hope it's not the worst day for them, because I know that I've done shoots. I'll admit that I've done shoots where I'm there. I'm there like I said I would be, and I brought my gear like I said I would, and I filmed the things. But there's other shoots where I'm there and I'm doing stuff and I'm doing more than I should, and I'm finding things and I'm collaborating, I'm being creative, and most of my shoots are like that because that's the way I enjoy working. But there's absolutely been some things where I am present on set with the things I said I would have, doing the things I said I would do. And so I was hoping that for that doctor, it was one of those days where they're really excited about diagnosing and finding, help and whatever prescribed care is going to relieve my symptoms. But it could very well have been a day of just get me to 5 o'clock. I gotta go. And being grateful for whatever shred of that doctor's experience and expertise I get took some work afterwards. Not that I think that they gave me anything less, but again, I understand that we are all whole people. And so that's what I'm trying to recall. And as I wrap this all together, there's things, I mentioned the soccer practice and stuff, but there's things that happen in our lives, and I have had a busy few weeks with some health things. We've had a kid for 12 weeks. My 4-year-old has started his second year of preschool and is experiencing the things that 4-year-olds experience. And there's just challenges, and I've had some friends. We lost a friend in the Frisbee community a few weeks ago, and we had a sort of memorial gathering for him this week that I got to go to, and I saw so many old faces and friends and people that I've known, and I'm not thinking about work. I'm not thinking about that, and I shouldn't be, and nor should any of the people there have been thinking about their work. And these people that represent this client that I'm trying to distance myself from with this project, I hope that they're not putting all their energy into how they email me. I get that. But for me, separating, like trying to get to a spot where it's just cold and efficient. And I read books where, it's like, people don't care. Just what's the most efficient email? Write that one. And that's not quite authentic to me, because there's things that I pride myself on including in my business. Being empathetic is one of them, and being courteous is another big one, and keeping my composure as often as I can. And I did that today with the email that I wrote, even though it was probably more time spent for people who aren't even going to read it necessarily, and who are going to move on quickly and forget about anything that I ever did for them. And that's fine, because I have clients that I love, and tomorrow I'm shooting at an absolute favorite client of mine that I call occasionally. I'm like, hey, you want to try something fun? And he says, yeah, and pays us. And we've made some awesome stuff over the years. I'm really excited about it. And tomorrow's going to be more experimentation, working with two people that, one is Sean Kirkland, who I have this budding relationship with him. He's a brilliant director and an amazingly creative guy. And I'm excited to see what he wants to do with this. And then the other is a photographer named Rob Grimm, who's a brilliant, seasoned veteran of photography and product photography, who brings an expertise that I will never even begin to scratch a piece of. And to be able to shoot next to him tomorrow is really exciting. And we're shooting some really, really good food. And so it all makes me excited. And so while I will not mourn the loss of this client, I know that there's other clients that are a better fit for me, and it's more fulfilling creatively, even if it's not quite as lucrative. And then the other thing that this all wraps back into, and I guess this is a lot of work-life balance too, and it's being empathetic to other people's work-life balance is really the theme here. But for me, the kids show, I've been sitting on it, and we filmed it. So many people put in so much work, and I'm working on it. But I felt bad of like, man, here's a Tuesday night where I'm sitting down here doing this YouTube live stream instead of editing it. What does that say? And that's been beating me up lately, because I've also been I don't have a lot of time after my kids go to bed before I need to go to bed. Otherwise, I'm a useless zombie with a headache the next day. But I want to say, like, well, I'll spend an hour editing, and do I want to spend an hour editing or an hour stretching and working out stuff that's going to impact my physical health and hopefully for the better in the long run? But I felt bad for like postponing working on it and the hubris of like, well, I'll get to it next week, because so many people put time into that, and I put time into that. I'm excited to do it, but it took me till today, as I was again just spending this time holding my daughter, thinking, oh, this is what's really important. And if I had to choose between finishing that kids show or savoring this hour of holding my daughter, it's not even close. It's not even close. And so that's what I'm trying to remember. And if you're setting up your creative professional business, or if you're out, even if you're not in a creative professional business, whatever you do, you have the opportunity to be courteous to people, to be empathetic to people, knowing that whoever's across from you, whoever you're providing a service or a product to, might be having the worst day of their life. And they might be dealing with some stuff that you hopefully will never even know about, if you're lucky. And if we can keep that in mind, then we raise the tenor for our capacity for love. And we do it in the way we talk to one another, in the way we work with one another. And by being kind to your clients and to your vendors, the more we can all do this, the bigger the ripples grow, the more contagious it becomes, and the more standardized it becomes, so that whoever this client does deal with next, maybe they'll say, oh, these next people, I don't know, are really nice, nicer than Sean was, or like they're not as nice as Sean, and only now do we notice that. Maybe we should all treat each other better. I'm not saying I don't want them to come back to me and say, oh, you were so nice. That's not the point here. But my point is, if all video producers, if all photographers, all creatives, if all gas station clerks and janitors, everybody can just smile at each other a little bit and help us get through what are inevitably hard days from time to time, man, we could be in a different spot, and our jobs would be easier, everything would be more understanding, and life would be just that much better. And with that much better, it could have such an impact. And when you look at some of the stuff happening, I'm not going to dive this deep into the metaphor, but a little kindness can make a huge difference, and it can be the difference between someone making a really bad decision and someone not making a really bad decision for themselves or for someone else, whatever these things may be. And so be nice to each other, be nice to yourself, and be empathetic. And especially if you're in any position of authority with your business, to deal with people, to write contracts, to provide something to somebody, taking the time to do it with a little bit of empathy will go a long way to making your career that much happier, because you'll be that much happier and your clients will be that much happier too. That's all I got. Thank you so much for watching. I'm seeing if there's any questions. No, it's a quiet chat tonight. I hope it was working. Have a great day or night or whatever, wherever. See you later. Bye. Now I have to walk around and turn off the camera.